Everywhere you look, in every video you watch, people telling you to choose home ownership over renting. But why? Really? Home ownership? Is home ownership overrated or is it right up your alley? Join us. Whoa, the gang's all back together.
All
What is
right.
I feel like this is a Wilson Phillips reunion tour or something. Maybe this is I don't know, the Eagles. Been a while.
Has.
It has. So cool. So glad to be back here with all y'all.
High
I
five. Yo.
Well, now Nelson took a little time off to try and be sick and survive being sick. And we just had a Nelson and Robbie videothon this week on Mondays. Hey, we're back with all three of us today. So this is the cool thing. Just in case anybody doesn't know this, if you're seeing the video version, we also have a podcast. It is called The Uncommon Truth Live, and it is available anywhere you choose to listen to podcasts. And if you have found us on your podcast, you can also find us on YouTube under The Uncommon Truth Live. So you can see both of us no matter which format. And I don't think we talk about that in it very much.
Wow, not really. Not really.
That's true.
Uh,
The podcast is a fun format.
Man, if you want to see
It
my
is.
ugly face, you can just go to the podcast and just hear me, my ugly voice.
Whatever. So let's talk about something just ad hoc. Let's have some little fun with this because really, when we start talking about home ownership, is it overrated or is it not? And people continually call home ownership that American dream. And there's pros and there's cons, and some people may be perfect for just renting, and some people may really want home ownership. And especially as generations and get older, they may actually decide, hey, I want to not rent all the time, and let's jump onto this wagon called home ownership. Is there good points? Is there bad points? What do y'all think? What do you would you buy another house or would you go back to renting?
I'm gonna just speak out of experience on my wife's part. She has moved around 11 times since she moved to Austin, and she was renting those 11 years. And I love dealing with numbers. I go, hey, why don't you do the math and find out how much money you could have if you had found a little bit with a place that you can live with a friend or like bunk or maybe stay at a family member's and pay the minimum. And I calculated the math, and she would have in her pocket around $90,000 today if she had not been using apartments. And that's money you're never going to see back because when you rent an apartment, the only person getting richer would be the landlords of that apartment complex, right? They're the ones pocketing all that money. That
Wow.
is, yeah,
That's a big number.
yeah, it
That
is.
is a big number.
I'm sure it would be higher. That's just me taking like a low average and a median. It could be probably higher or more higher if it was an accurate number. But it's hard for her to go back so many years to find out what she was paying for rent. It's crazy how that those numbers add up over time. And
You also have to take into consideration if she moved 11 times,
if we,
she also had the expenses related to the move.
yeah,
And especially if there's fees involved with apartments
yeah,
or if there are moving fees,
losing your
those
security deposit for leaving everything unclean and things like that is always that wasn't factored in. So yeah, definitely higher. And being in a home is a lot more, in my opinion, convenient in the sense that I don't have any neighbors above me, to my sides, or below me. I don't have to share a park with someone. I don't have to park in a designated area where there's other vehicles. I can wash my own car outside. There's a lot that goes on into it, but long term, it's an even greater investment on our part, right?
yeah, if she really starts thinking about did you ask her a follow-up question on why she chose renting instead of buying something? Was it just too overwhelming? Was it too much? Or if
Yeah.
she said, "Hey, I'm a single female, I don't wanna have to deal with the maintenance," or anything like that? Were there any kinda specifics in
It
her
was
situation?
it was more of a intimidation factor of getting that ball rolling and actually doing it, not knowing much about it. It's just it seemed easier for her to just continue to go down on the renting field than trying to see if it would be better to buy a home and figure out the numbers in the long run. But it's always an intimidation factor to take a leap into something you don't know, right? Like starting your own business can be very scary if you don't know anything about it. But it's now it's just a fantastic idea to own a home and to have one, right?
Yeah, and you mentioned the financial aspect of renting and continuing to rent. And another thing that, happens when you're renting that doesn't necessarily happen when you own is that every time you renew your lease, that rent's going to go up. And in the past months and years, we've seen, I remember when I rented an apartment and my lease would come around and my rent would go up 30 or $40 per term. And that was tolerable. However, the situation that we're in now and the rent increases that we're seeing now, it can be hundreds, even thousands of dollars for the same unit from one year to the next. And that kind of uncertainty, I think, is one of the downsides of renting because when your lease comes up for renewal, the property owner is going to decide what you have to pay to stay in the home that you've become accustomed to.
Mhm.
You don't have a choice. You can either pay that cost or, like your wife did for so many years, you can move,
Yeah.
which has its own set of expenses and burdens to go with it. Whereas, if you take the leap and get into home ownership, depending on what kind of a mortgage loan you have, if you have a fixed rate mortgage, that mortgage payment is going to be pretty much the same, other than if you consider taxes and insurance can fluctuate.
Yeah, of course.
But your mortgage payment's going to be, you can pretty much depend on budgeting for that same payment month after month and year after year.
Mhm.
Whereas with apartments, your monthly housing payment is at some point going to be at the mercy of a company or an individual that's not making decisions based on you. They're making decisions based on profit.
Right.
So,
And yeah, I agree with that. And the fact that like Austin is six to $800 a month higher than San Antonio on a one bedroom apartment. And I think it was Fox News last month that showed Austin as the highest in the country as far as rentals. I think at that point it was 43%.
Yeah.
And I've seen other articles that have been a lot higher where Nashville was number two.
Yeah.
And that's a big jump. I think I may have already said that
Yeah.
before, but
Mhm.
there's a
Yeah.
lot. But what about buying a house in a homeowners association area? What are the pros and cons and challenges there?
Carrie, are you on a
yeah.
home? I think you're one of the lucky that don't have an HOA, right?
No, I don't have an HOA. And as far as HOAs go, it's one of those things that people either love them or hate them. I've worked with a lot of people that actively look for a property within an HOA just
Wow.
because you tend to get that kind of some regulation and some uniformity. And some people really enjoy having that. And then, of course, there's your other school of people that really don't want to be in an HOA because there are so many things that you have to get permission from the HOA to do, or the HOA is going to prohibit this or prohibit that. And then you can get involved in the politics of the HOA, and
Mhm.
depending on who's running it or who's not running it at a certain time, things can change pretty drastically. That's one of those love or hate kind of things.
Right.
I'm not in an HOA right now, and guess I'm enjoying it. And there are times when I would like a little bit more uniformity in the neighborhood because I know that can contribute to resale prices being a little bit higher. But there's other times when I know I'm doing stuff at my house that if I was in an HOA, they'd probably not be super happy with me. So I guess I like the freedom. I'm probably on team no HOA.
Yeah, I just had a client in San Antonio who mandated no HOA, and it was such a limited amount of homes that they could actually look at because they
Yeah.
took out that requirement. And I wouldn't, and I'm in the middle because I've lived in an HOA that was overbearing. And then in Arlington, I lived in one that was just horrible. They didn't understand the rules. They thought they could do just anything, and their interpretation of city code in comparison to what they could do was just wrong on so many times. But I also lived in Hyde Park in Austin where there was no formal HOA that would come in and limit people on painting their house pink or purple
Right.
or these crazy colors that just look terrible. And
Mm.
nobody was overseeing all the crap in their yards, or
Yeah.
we're going to let it just grow up. And you get that pride of ownership, but homeowners associations can be good because they keep some uniformity and make people mow their yards,
Yeah.
but then
Yeah.
they can be crappy.
And when you have a crazy yard next to you, maybe it can be okay, but then when you go to list your house and try to sell it, like that crazy yard next door that's not being regulated is going to affect you selling your house,
Yep.
which is really frustrating.
as
Yeah.
well as the rodents that are attracted to that uncrazy, unkempt land.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, the possums and the
Raccoons.
snakes and the raccoon and the mice. Yeah, it becomes an issue of, "Hey, hold on, come on, and what's behind that?"
Yeah. It's unknown. I've always been one to, I'm not a fan of HOAs, although I am in one. I'm not, never been clear. I would want to have someone restricting me on the height of my fence, right? If I want to build a privacy fence all the way around and lay it horizontally, I want to do that. But HOAs, they don't let you. I want to put a flag out in my front yard, right? But they don't let you after a certain height. But at the
Or
same
a certain flag.
Yeah, exactly. But I agree with everything y'all are saying. It's true. Having no HOA would be also a con in the sense that it has a lot of what if possibilities that turn into certainties, right? Because what if someone doesn't mow the lawn? They're probably not going to mow it again tomorrow or the following week. But here in Texas, there's around 21,000 HOAs. Like, there's 0.5 million homes that are part of those communities. And I think 20% of the population in Texas are in HOA communities. That's roughly 6 million people. So that's a lot of homes and a lot of people that are all in HOAs. It's
Yeah, and there's mandatory and there's voluntary HOAs. So a
Mhm.
voluntary one is one that was created after the inception where all the neighborhood and basically the homes were built, so they couldn't deed restrict all those homes as being mandated to be in an HOA. And then you'll see some HOAs that have just been disbanded and just are defunct. And it's something that you do find out when you're buying. But what about homeowners insurance? That's a typical cost. Is it prohibited? Is it frustrating? What is your thoughts?
honestly, it could just in general, homeowners insurance. I don't even know. Do we pay? I need to double check with mine. I don't think I pay for homeowners insurance. I do actually. And I do
Yeah.
actually. Yeah. And it's around $1,100 a year, which is great because you need to read it. And there's always going to be different types of insurance plans that you can get, but you need to be careful with what you're looking at. You want to read everything because it's all about the fine print.
Yeah, I think homeowners insurance versus renters insurance is a wash.
Mm.
And I
Mhm.
think that honestly, it depends on the company that you choose for your insurance because some don't ever want to pay out and they'll pay out a little and you have to fight for everything. And some are decent and easy to work
Honestly, I don't even know why I questioned that because I remember we had a leak in the plumbing, I think maybe a year ago. And we weren't sure if it was going to be a slab leak because those are difficult to repair and they can get costly because there goes the floor. They have to do some sort of testing before to find the leak. There goes the slab and they got to get to the pipe work. And I was going through the homeowner insurance to figure out what exactly is covered on there. And if you go and read all that fine print towards the bottom, it breaks everything down by percentages or by a cost or a price. So luckily it was covered to a certain number of the house. So we were like, all right, great. If it's a slab leak, we're covered. But then we found out it wasn't a slab leak and it was a leak, broken pipe by a tree that was happened to be connected to the main valve. So that was not covered.
That's frustrating.
Yeah, it was frustrating. It was bad. But all that stuff, it breaks down in detail. And as apartment renters insurance is, like you said, a wash because I remember my wife one time had one of the sprinklers for the apartment complex, the pipe broke and the water was just pouring down into the apartment complex and everything was ruined. It was a 2 bedroom at the time and everything was ruined in all the rooms, the kitchen. And it's crazy that the renter's insurance that you think you're never really going to use, it actually did pay out because they sent an insurance adjuster, claims adjuster to come audit everything to make sure what we are claiming is going to get reimbursed to the clients. And they did. They sent her a check and everything. They can go back and buy everything that they needed. It was a good investment on her part because she didn't lose anything.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What about pets? This is my favorite topic considering Lucasi's right here beside me. She may pop up now that I said her name. But what about pets versus I think there's a brilliance there with owning. You have no landlord rules or added fees or pet rent, which is crazy. You see some landlords that limit the breeds, and it's not really shouldn't be really a breed restriction necessarily as an attitude kind of thing. What do y'all think?
There are a lot of limitations when you're looking at renting. When I've worked with clients that are looking at renting something, whether it be in an apartment or a house, that's been the number one hurdle that people have had to surmount is if they have a dog or dogs, trying to get into somewhere that's gonna be okay with the number of dogs that they have, the weight of the dogs that they have, the type of the dogs that they have, because landlords are they screen for dogs, you have to pay extra pet rent. It's a lot to deal with. If you're trying to rent and you have animals that live with you, it's a major thing.
Yeah. Security deposit goes up more too. Just a
That's
lot of
true.
things factor into it. There's always a lot of loopholes too from the experience what my wife has gone through. There's always service dog licenses you can get online that tend to lower all those fees down a little bit. There's a lot that goes on, but honestly, at an apartment or renting at a home, I can't have a skunk. I want a pet skunk, and my landlord says I can't have pet skunks. I can't get one or I can't bring it home. So what am I gonna do?
It's like a stinky situation.
It is. And or like maybe even there's some people who like parrots and birds, right? And so they can't
Right.
come in because they're too noisy or too messy. It's just my best friend, I gotta find another home for it because I can't take it with me or I can't buy one because I asked permission and they said no. Being in your own home, you're able to do any of that, right? Within limits, because living in an HOA, if my dog is too loud, my neighbors can report me, right? So if I have a skunk and let's just say she's spraying everywhere, then I'm in trouble, right? But yeah, it's
Oh my gosh,
Well,
I
do you
can't.
guys see a pet skunk in your future? Is this something you've
I've
been
seen
thinking about?
I've seen some friends that I know that have a pet skunk, and they take out this when they're born. They take out this stink sac, so they're not able to make produce that smell or that stink. So it's actually just a common pet, and it's like a hybrid between a cat with its curiosity and the chillness of a dog, but also best friend. They don't do the same thing, obviously, like they're gonna pay fetch. But it's that kind of companionship, and then having white and black animal with the beautiful fur, it's actually it looked pretty neat, and it was pretty from what I've been told, they're pretty content with their purchase, but if it's you've never had one before, it's probably gonna be a huge ordeal, and it might be
Nelson Lapid.
more of a shit show that it will be fun. Yeah, we gotta go down that road, but hey, if I wanted a skunk, no one can stop me because I can do whatever the hell I want.
Yeah, if you chose between a single family residence versus or a house versus a condo, you're also gonna have those hopefully a decent backyard.
Mhm.
So that will also give you some ease with a pet as far as even privacy and helping you being able to enjoy those backyard spaces. But even makes walking a dog, you just let them out in the backyard and go to the bathroom, come back in 110-degree weather.
Oh, yeah. Talk about
Just don't leave your pets out there,
oh, man.
please.
But they wanna stay out there. They're like, "I wanna keep playing," and you're like, "Oh, no, I'm dehydrating over here. Give me some."
Right?
I'm like, "Here comes another shower because you just started sweating." You're like, "I can't get in bed." Nasty. So, yeah, it becomes a big and it's a big responsibility too because it's a pet, right? And if you're at a condo, an apartment or whatever, or a home that's renting, you still have to take that animal. So you have a puppy. That puppy is going to need to go out many times out of the night, right? It's a little bit more comfortable to just go to your back door, open the back door and let them out, do their thing, right? And come back. But at an apartment, you have to walk it down, 12 flights of stairs or an elevator and then go to the designated area, go back up. So it can be very dreadful.
Yeah, I think the backyard space also became a highlight and an emphasis was placed on it in 2020 during COVID, where Americans realized that if they didn't have that backyard space or that backyard oasis, they really started having issues because if they lived in a shared community, like in an apartment or condo, a lot of those amenities were closed. And we had issues where we saw even websites where people were renting people's backyards and renting their swimming pools. And because it's a whole aspect of having that backyard oasis to take a vacation from your regular world. Privacy is a big thing for me, and having that space is a brilliant thing.
Yeah, definitely. The space is a huge thing. If you have a child, so it's their birthday, their 10th birthday, you want some space for that kid, right? And you can have to go. you want to throw it in the backyard, have a barbecue, have a moon balance or some sort of slip and slide thing, having that space and that privacy is a little bit better to be able to invite who you want. So there's a lot of differences between the renting and the homeowning, but also it depends on your lifestyle, right? Lifestyle has a huge thing to do with it. Are you a city folk? Do you like to be in the city? Then by all means, you should do what you enjoy. And if it's renting that you love to do, then rent, right? And you want to be next to the nightlife. That makes sense. How far is work? Or you have to commute to work? That's another thing, right? Are there homes nearby that you can buy, or are you forced to get into an apartment that's nearby your work? There are a lot of factors that can compute against the homeowner or a rent, right? So it all depends.
Maintenance and property taxes on homeownership, because you typically, when you're in an apartment or something, you either call somebody or press an app and your issues are taken. But we've got maintenance of the home that constantly has to be done, whether it is some of the systems or the outside or the inside. But it also, on the flip side of that, you can paint your wall colors anything any way you want. And you don't have to get those non-damaging floor tiles to go in a bathroom. You can tear out and make your own space a reflection of you, which is also a benefit to homeownership, I think.
Yeah. Maintenance, I'm glad that you brought that one up because I think that factors into kind of the financial side of it too. And as a homeowner, it may feel like you're paying more to maintain things because when that AC breaks in the middle of the summer, are immediately making a payment for someone to come and fix it. Whereas when you're in an apartment, you make a phone call and someone comes and fixes it. But the thing is, at an apartment, paying for that maintenance is part of your rent, and you pay for that maintenance whether something on your unit breaks or not.
Yeah.
So when you have a home, you're way more in control of those maintenance costs. So they're not just automatically charged to you no matter what happens. You can choose your own person to come maintain something, or you can learn how to make the repairs yourself, which is actually, I think, a really fun part of being a homeowner is that stuff that you can learn how to maintain, learn
Carrie
how to
likes
do it. I do. Yeah. We were talking about our DeWalt tools the other day. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is true. Yeah, yeah. So Carrie's on my list for maintenance issues. Can you handle this?
Yeah, no, it's true. Having your own home, being able to practice on your DIY skills, right? I guess you can say, and how to fix something or go online because there are other homeowners that have the same issues probably, and they can walk you through their simplicity of doing it. It just takes a little bit more problem solving to figure it out. Or if you just want to call in the quits, just call a company to get it done. And it's easier for an apartment complex to send their maintenance crew, who are engineers probably or studied in the field, to repair something that they can get done pretty quickly because that's an investment on the landlord or the owners, investors of that apartment complex. They don't want that being ruined because that's money that they're losing if it's not repaired. It's their investment. And just like your home should be your investment as well. You're living it, you should be taking care of it so that in the long run, it can be like I was saying the other day, it can be your retirement money. It can be tuition or a gift to one of your grandkids or your kids. Or it can be turned into something as like, all right, now I can rent it out and have equity coming in while I'm retired living somewhere else. But you need to take care of it because it will deteriorate and it will deteriorate fast if you don't. And repairing an air conditioner is one of those costs that eventually will come 20 years down the line after you've lived there because the AC generally lives around that time span, right? Just like fences need to be replaced every 15 years, right? There's a life.
Overall, being able to be responsible for maintenance, but what about being able to put your own stamp on your own bedroom? Well, maybe you want a indigo blue on the wall or something like that. It makes it easier when you own your
Yeah.
than it would be if you were
True.
renting, because a lot of rental companies will not let you paint, and some say if you paint, you have to return it back, which is virtually impossible, especially if you're trying to do a dark color.
Yeah.
Nelson likes that purple I can see in the background and stuff, so
Okay. Yeah.
a purple wall wouldn't be something you could necessarily do. I'm with you, though. I had a house that had eggplant carpet upstairs,
Yeah.
so,
Don't get me wrong. I would never paint anything purple. And I don't think that I would be, I'd just be like, nope, slap that paint roll out of someone's hand. That's not going up. It's all day long. But I love purple accent. My wife and I share that in common. Our favorite colors are purple. And so that's something that we have here. But being able to do whatever you want, like you were saying, your stamp, that's pretty neat. I had a client that they had one of their bedrooms. It's just like a regular bedroom sized bedroom, but it has a little extension where there's a window that it's probably clearance 7 feet tall by I think 8 feet wide and maybe 5 feet deep in comparison to the rest of the room. And he had turned that into a kind of like a reading nook. And he brought the it's a twin size bed that fits there practically. And what happens is he built a shelf with some drawers underneath and he put like a foam twin size bed by that window and installed some lights on both sides so that he can just casually, he turned it into a box window essentially. And he turned it into a place where he can just go and read when he has time. And that's something you can do being a homeowner rather than renting somewhere. You don't have that ability to do that because that's not your place. You cannot go and change the structure of the home or do whatever you want because it's not yours, really.
That's very true because even just dealing with some of the architectural issues within the home, maybe you want to make one of the bedrooms a closet if it connects or really works, or change out the tub or something like that, because we get so stuck, I want to say, or comfortable in our own places. And sometimes it's easier to make a little bit of change, especially if you develop a social life and a world in your geographic location.
Yeah.
But what about, here I am with all these what abouts. What about dealing with the financial aspect? What about the payment stability versus a house versus a apartment or a rental property, and the building of equity? And I know you're a numbers guy, Nelson, and Carrie, I know you love to do those equity figures and stuff. But don't you believe that even with rentals just totally going crazy off the roof at 43% or whatever it is in Austin now, and San Antonio is up, I think 30. You think you can, it's better to shield with a mortgage that is maybe locked in for 30 years?
Honestly, numbers don't lie. And right there, it's on paper. It's a lot easier. It's that number is not going to move. It's stuck. And the other thing is you can always, if it is stuck and it's a little high, right, times change. And in 10 years, maybe you might want to refinance. Also, the other aspect out of you're building equity over time. And there are things like home equity line of credit where you can take money out of what's yours. Let's just say you wanted to invest in a business and you needed some money up front to start it up. That would be an ideal way to do it. And instead of going to the bank, getting a huge business loan and having to pay that with even higher interest, why wouldn't it be logical to take it out of something that you currently own, right? Just pay yourself back. It's a lot to do. And like the numbers we were playing with earlier, around $90,000 in saving, let's just say it's not that, even half of that would have been a big chunk of savings, right? 45 would have still been great. And that's a new car. That's the start of a business or something that you wanted to do and have. It's great. Yeah. Or even down payment on a home. Yeah, exactly. So all of that can reflect on the decisions of what you want to make in the future, and being there for 30 years at, let's just say $2,200 a month is better than having to pay an apartment complex that's starting at $2,200 a month, but may increase the following year 43%. That's high. That's a lot.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And I didn't even know it went up 43%. I thought we were at 30. That's unbelievable. That's at 43% right now. That is,
I've actually seen the Austonian did an article. It's on my Facebook business page. It actually talks about, I think it was like 100, over 130% is what they did. I don't know their numbers because I haven't seen their statistics. I know Fox News did 43%, but it could be even higher because of, I've seen a whole lot of social media on the rising prices and people just not being priced out on the rental side, because there's a lot of people who've decided to pause, press the pause button on buying and stay renting because they think the interest rates are going to go down. But what they're not realizing, in my opinion, is they may be missing a great house. And you're always supposed to marry the house and date the rate. And because you can change it, and you can, in 5 years or 3 years or something, if the rate drops down, you can turn around and refinance and have a, you need to, I think the latest number is you need to at least change 1 percentage point to make it financially viable. But it depends on what your financial goals are, even just marrying the house, because there's some great houses out there that have not been out there, and a lot of price reductions on houses that because of the interest rates on affordability to be able to get them to move. So then you may be actually missing out on the home because you're afraid of the rate. Because in a rental, don't you think that the interest rates on any loans and costs of owning the rental property are passed on to the renter?
Absolutely.
They don't just say, "Oh, property taxes." Oh, and apartments, for example, they're taxed what on one rate versus a house at another, and they're not. They may be passing it on to all of those tenants, but it's not like you get a homestead exemption on an apartment complex, right?
No, no homestead exemption for the apartment owner.
Harry, walk us through a homestead exemption and what's the benefit of it?
So yeah, for the homestead exemption, when you own your home and you live in it, you can apply for this exemption and you'll get taxed on a lower value than what you would if it were, say, an investment home or an apartment building that you owned or just somewhere that you didn't own. It's something that the state of Texas does to encourage home ownership and to allow people who are living in their home and owning it to pay a little bit less on their taxes. And it really is a wonderful benefit that homeowners can enjoy. Because you are, even though you don't see the line item on your rent, you are paying taxes for the landowner or the property owner that you're renting from.
Yeah.
It
And
then
there's some legal protections in there with a homestead as well in the state of Texas. I'm not an attorney, so you need to talk to your own attorney about it. But there's some protections in there to protect your home. But Nelson, do you know what the typical homestead rate reduction is? I can't remember what it is off the top of my head.
Typically, they cap you at 25,000, and I think they've been trying to increase that to $40,000. I'm not sure if it's there yet. I haven't checked anything on that, but I know that is the percentage when it equates. It all depends on the tax rate and everything, so it can vary. But I know it's a big savings. You might not see it, but it is. And the major point of having that homestead is it's just to, like Robbie was saying, there are some legal aspects that it protects you, but also to just cap your taxes, your property taxes from increasing so much. If you're at a rental property and you see it, that house cannot have a homestead because it's being leased, right? So that
right,
taxes from that landlord, he's going or she's going to have to increase your rent based off those property taxes because if it went up 30% from the previous year and they have to make payments of $600, $700 more, it's going to reflect on your monthly payment and that's going to hurt. And it's a lot of money and that's money you're never going to see back again as a tenant, right? So
Right.
it's more power to those investors or people who go out and buy these leased homes. But I feel like right now, what's going to happen possibly next week at the end of July with an interest hike, there might be more houses that are going to be going for lease because it's going to be more, I guess they see it as more affordable to rent out rather than buy a home at a certain interest rate. And you can see the market shift, like you just said, almost practically 40% increase this year. And what else happened this year? Interest rates hike. So you can see that more people are probably going to be starting to rent too. That's my assumption. But I might be wrong. I might not be.
Who knows? Yeah. I believe the number is still 25,000. So that
Still talking.
basically means if you've got a house value at 175,000 and you're taxed on 150 instead of the 175.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Because we had a lot of people that moved to Austin coming from California. And those that have moved from California, some have bought from California and some have come, especially ones that have moved with Apple and some of the other tech companies, really rented just to get their bearing and figure out where they want to be.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're seeing some of those people trying to figure out, "Ooh, what are we going to do? Are we going to
Yeah.
own or rent?" And I think certain age groups want certain size homes.
Yeah.
We saw, we saw a whole lot of people estimating that at this time period, people who were in the boomer generation would be wanting smaller housing. We were trying to prepare for smaller housing and they are wanting to age in place and stay at their larger residents, especially after the concerns with COVID and monkeypox or any other crap that's coming down. People want their own space.
Definitely. And I see, like you just said, a lot of the people moving from California, it, they could be also renting for a specific time frame because they have something being built, right? And new construction could be an option that they have to wait 18 months for that house to be built. They don't know, right? They've never been in this boat situation before here in Texas and things can change. There can be a freeze tomorrow for all we know, right? what's going to happen? It's going to prolong that construction even further. And what they're in for too is I know when you come from California, they it's completely different taxes from real estate there and real estate here. So they need to be educated and aware of what's going to happen with their property taxes that year. And it's good to have an agent like us here at Uncommon to be able to educate you in those decisions because it can be coming out a shock for you when you start paying your bill and you're like, what? And it's property tax and it can go up next year more. Yeah, it can. It's a lot of money to buy $1 million home in Treviso because that's where you want to be. And you're paying taxes on that. And it's a lot of dinero.
Yeah. So would you, if you had to do it all over again, if you were going to be quoted on TV or in a video or have to stand and make your political aspirations on home ownership, yes or no, would you buy or over renting or would you rent over buying? Carrie,
I would buy again 100 times. Yeah.
Nelson.
I'd buy and buy again to rent out to those who don't want to buy because you can just, that's fine by me. You pay my bill.
Right.
You, you've quote me on that. 'Cause, yeah, that's fine. It's the investment wise and time. So yeah, buy and buy again.
Yeah, a lot of people have been waiting for some of the, especially if we talk about Austin specific, for some of the prices to neutralize or come down or not be so crazy as they were. And we're seeing the beginning effects of that, but we're not, I don't think we're on the end of that trend. So we may see where people get back to a little bit. I think the Austin Board of Realtors said yesterday we're getting back to a normal pre-pandemic mortgage or not mortgage, excuse me, home market. And of course, the mortgage is always changing. And they dropped those rates specifically to keep some economy going during the pandemic, which
Yeah.
is why a lot of people jumped on it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's going to get different situations right now. I'm looking at new builds and construction like that. You're already seeing builders slash their prices because their home's just sitting there stagnant and people are waiting to that. Maybe they'll slash it again. They may or may not, but it just depends on the market. We don't know what tomorrow holds. And that's the beauty of the game is just if there were anyone who can tell the future, man, they'd be so rich, right? So fortunately, we just got to play every day and live it like tomorrow. So something I look forward to find out.
Yeah, I think it was Mark Twain that said invest in real estate because they're not making any more of it.
Love
So
that.
that's kind of cool. I think that was Mark Twain that said that or wrote that. But home ownership isn't for everybody, but I think it's a benefit to everybody because I think it's going to be the single easiest way for people to create.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
And security, right? Because one thing that I look and like you were just quoting, whether it's Mark Twain or someone else, I just in Japan, I love Japanese culture and I remember talking about it. They don't have much room in Japan much to build anymore. The only place they have is exactly to build up and they just continue to go. It's because there's no land and that land is so valuable that there isn't any being made, right? If anything, it can disappear faster than it can be made. So that's something that needs to be spoken about whether you're just investing in to own the land and build a home or rent somewhere else can be smart to own that land because eventually in the future something might need to be built there, constructed, and you being the owner might benefit from that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's tons of different companies that are buying real estate. So that tells you there's something there. And there's tons of different buyers from other countries coming here and buying real estate. So there's got to be something to that.
Definitely. I look forward to seeing what's going to happen. It's always fun to know what tomorrow holds, but we
I
don't.
know.
So we got to wait.
My,
Right.
my, my crystal ball's broken. What about y'all?
Yeah, mine's broken too.
My magic 8 ball stuck on yes, you can.
Oh, I like that.
Love it.
That's a good thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes, you can.
Cheers, y'all.